So, thus, we embarked on the process of egg freezing, embryo creation, and then an embryo transfer.
Ooh, that's a lot of money.
Raise a glass to the past, present, and future you with actress Danielle Mone Truitt as she dives into the beautiful complexities of life's journey through real, transparent conversation. All the women I've been made me into who I've become.
Hey y'all, welcome to All the Women I've Been podcast, where we have real, raw, authentic conversations that encourage and inspire you. Thank you so much for being a part of our community, for liking, sharing, subscribing. Today, I am so excited to have the lovely Ashley Blaine here. You might remember her from a show called Dear White People. It's also a movie. She played the character of Joelle. She also is the host of her own podcast called Trials to Triumph. And I can't wait to talk to her about her journey with IVF and pregnancy and becoming a mom. So tune in.
Ashley!
Hi!
I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For joining us. Yes. So before we get into the conversation, I have to say, before we started recording, we were talking about my kids.
Yes.
So Roosevelt, when I was telling you about,
Yeah.
you guys actually have the same birthday.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with him.
I know. I'll have to have him come down after we finish.
Oh my
But
God.
yes, December 4th.
Love Sagittarius.
Yes.
Men. My dad's a Sagittarian man, and I'm obsessed with him as well.
I love it.
Oh, when you were describing him, I was like, I'm getting it.
Like cool, but not like friendly, but you gotta like.
We're very perceptive.
Yes.
You can't. We know what's going on. So.
Right. Yeah. So of course, I'm looking you up and stuff, and I said, "Oh my God,
I love
it's the
that.
same birthday.
Special day.
And then the other thing that I thought was like so cool is you posted your mom on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And the song, If I Could,
Yes.
my mom literally dedicated that song to me and my siblings. And my mom is a singer, so she sung that song to me at my college graduation.
Oh
I think,
gosh.
one of my bridal showers. Like
I'm
that's
done.
my mom's song for her kids.
Wow,
Yes.
wow. Okay, so we have a lot of
We too.
connections. I love that.
I love that song so much. And I'm like, you're literally the only person in life that I have ever seen even like post it or I'm like, oh my God.
I always think of my mom when I hear that song.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
really special. I love that.
Yeah. And then, I mean, becoming mothers,
Yes.
being mothers, it's like, that's always going to be a song that I think about my own kids. So
Yes.
anyway, I thought that was really cute. And then the other thing, so we officially met when you came to see my play.
One of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my entire life. I was hoping that it would come up because I'm still shook by it.
Thank you. Oh
shook.
my God. Thank
Yes.
you. That meant a lot. That really did mean a lot. But I know Christina. I know her mom. But I hadn't really met you. But then once I met you, I realized I had definitely seen you before because we've auditioned for some of the same things.
Yes.
Like we've been like in the waiting room
Yes.
together.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm happy that we finally
Me
really
too.
crossed paths
Me
and
too.
stuff like that. So, but yeah, I'm wanted to bring you on the podcast. I'm just really inspired by your journey to motherhood. You did IVF, and I know a lot of women, women who are older, women who just have having fertility issues and things like that. A lot of Black women I've seen recently are doing IVF, and I just think it's a really important topic, and I want to know more about it. So, I wanted to have you on, to talk to me about your journey, with that, why you chose, to go that route. So maybe
I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh wait, do you want me just to
We can just jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, I'm pregnant.
Yay.
I am headed into my 8th month. So I'm like,
Wow.
I'm approaching the finish line.
I
kept saying like once I get into the 30 weeks, then it's really gonna be the
love
countdown.
it.
So
And first of all, you look great.
Thank you so
much.
much.
You would never know that you were 8 months pregnant.
It's the weirdest thing I know.
But that's a first baby. Like when you have your first baby, it's there. Well, at least for me, my first baby was I carried so small. Nobody knew I was pregnant until it was time for me to give birth.
Yes,
And clearly.
yes.
happening here? Because where is the baby?
I know. It's so funny. I'm like, she's popping out now. People are like, no, she's not. Where is it?
She's in your back.
Yeah, I know. But even that, like, I've had such a journey with IVF, or just not actually. IVF has been the easiest part of the journey, to be completely honest. It was everything that came before
Tell us
IVF that was tough. But I've had such a great pregnancy, so I feel like my friends and my family are like, that was God being like,
yeah, you went through enough.
I'll make this easy on you.
I love that.
Yes. But basically, after my husband Daryl and I got married, we were open to getting pregnant whenever.
Right.
And we had done all the things, even like right after we got married, we just went ahead and were like, did genetic testing just to make sure we didn't have any, conflicting genetic diseases or whatever. Right. We really, went to, I got my, like, the blood test done, like, to test my AMH and my FSH levels, which is like, I really recommend that women do this if you're thinking of conceiving. It's really just like, seeing like what your egg reserve is like. You know what I mean? And that depends on, many factors, but oftentimes it's your age.
Right.
It's age and genetics. You kind of can't do anything about it.
Right.
There's people who are 22 and don't have a large egg reserve, and that could be due to genetics. And there's people that are 45 and for whatever reason they have a fine egg reserve.
Right.
So we did all of those preliminarily, and my doctor was like, "You're fine. You actually have you have your levels are fine. You have eggs. You're healthy. Your husband's healthy. Y'all should be fine." We did a sperm analysis with Daryl just to make sure.
Wow.
So we really did everything.
Yeah.
And then we got to a year and I hadn't gotten pregnant. And I was really diligent on like taking the ovulation strips and knowing, when I was ovulating and really tracking my period. Like it was very intentional trying.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen. And so I went back to the doctor, maybe it was around 13, 14 months had passed.
Okay.
And it was like, hey, like, this is my OBGYN. It's like,
Okay.
hey, like, we're not getting pregnant. I don't know what's going on. And she was like, I think it's actually time to pivot. And I think that she wanted us to pivot for a lot of different reasons. I think part of it was my age at the time. I was, I guess, 35. Which again, it's not
old, but it's still they consider
infertility is considered advanced maternal age.
Right.
Some say geriatric.
We don't like that word.
I like advanced maternal age, which just sounds sophisticated and chic still.
Right.
And most doctors after a year they're gonna say, okay, we got to see what's going on. Because at the time it was really what they called unexplained infertility. There was no like actual, they couldn't pinpoint, oh, Ashley, this is why.
Right.
So she referred us to a reproductive endocrinologist, which is also kind of known like as a fertility doctor.
Yeah.
And typically reproductive endocrinologists are also OBGYNs too. They sometimes don't do both at the same time, but they have both capabilities.
Yeah. Right.
So she referred us to one, and upon meeting with him and just telling him what was going on, he was like, I actually think you're a really good candidate for IVF.
Okay.
Now, initially, I was like, well, what about IUI? So are you familiar with IUI?
No. Yeah, tell us.
So IUI is kind of like a step before IVF.
Okay.
So have you heard of like what people said, the turkey baster method?
Oh, yeah.
It's essentially that, but I don't like saying the turkey baster method, but just to kind of get your brain around it. Essentially, it is, you can do it medicated by like priming your body, or you can do it unmedicated, really just by following your natural cycle.
Okay.
And it's where they will basically take sperm, prepare it, make sure it's, washed properly and just like, at, top-notch quality. And they will put the sperm in your uterus at the time of ovulation in hopes that the egg fertilizes.
Right. Okay.
So it's less invasive,
Okay.
less expensive. And so I asked, like,
Can I do that?
Can I do that?
Right.
But because we hadn't gotten pregnant for so long, he was kind of like, you might as well just.
Right.
And because we wanted more than one kid, we were thinking ahead. He was like, you might as well freeze your eggs too. Right. So, thus we embarked on the process of egg freezing, embryo creation, and then an embryo transfer.
Ooh, that's a lot of money. Yeah, I mean, it's worth it. It's worth it for what you want, but
this is the thing. I will tell people, like, it's an investment that is very worth it.
Yeah.
I was married in doing this, right? But if I weren't, I still think it's actually even more important for women who are just not sure if they want kids, but think they might or
might not actually have be in a marriage
per
se,
but like are hope to meet their partner down the line. I even married, once I got my eggs out and frozen, we were creating embryos, the amount of I felt such a stress release. Like I felt so relieved of I didn't realize that every month we're losing eggs.
Yeah.
We are born with the amount of eggs we will have.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And so it's not even you can't cheat time. It just is what it is. Right. And so I felt so free. Okay, now I have options.
Right.
And that's what I want for women. That's especially what I want for Black women, is for us to know that we have options.
We have options, yeah.
So we embarked on IVF. We did the egg retrieval, and then we, because we wanted to get pregnant, we created embryos where they're, in the lab, they're going to take his sperm and, put it with the egg, and we're going to, wait 5 days and see how many make it to what they call blastocyst, which is like a full embryo. But in the meantime, my doctor was like, you know what? I found another fibroid. So I've had 2 myomectomies already. Well, 3 now, but at the time I'd only had 2. And myomectomies is just the what a fibroid removal is called.
Right.
He was like, but I actually see another one now. Now fibroids come back often. That's a thing.
Yeah.
However,
sometimes they just go
and sometimes the thing about fibroids is that the problem with them is where they are, depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So that's why people have successful pregnancies and be like, I had 7 fibroids while I was pregnant.
But they're not in a place that's preventing you from giving birth. I had fibroids when I had my C-section with my second son. The doctor was like, he was had a lot of scar tissue that I wanted to take out. He's like, but you also have a few fibroids. He said, but he said, I didn't remove them because they're the place that they're at. He said, and they're really small. He says, so if you change, if you do things with your diet and things like that, they won't grow. And so that's important to know.
It is. So I don't want women, if the doctor says you have a fibroid, I don't want you to automatically, be scared and feel like it's, it's going to affect everything. It's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
For me, this particular fibroid that he found, he wanted to remove it because it was right on the lining of my uterus. Right. So kind of what we ended up suspecting is that perhaps that was maybe why I wasn't getting pregnant, because the egg would be like, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't like it in here. It's something's going on in here. Something's blocking me. I want to go there. I can't go there. Right. So we then devised a plan to remove the fibroid, allow me to heal, and then, in the 4th quarter of the year, do an embryo transfer and hope that it would be successful. Yeah. And it was. So I say that to say, I was so, going into IVF, I was like, there's no way that I'm about to be injecting myself with all sorts of medications and needles. I'm the person that gets her blood drawn
and looks away.
I can't look. I can't. I don't mind.
You
can do it.
Right.
I don't want to see that needle go in.
Exactly.
It is crazy. So I watch Intervention. I can't look. I can't. But guess what? It was the easiest thing I ever. It was so easy, and I would do it again. It was so. I also think that God really brought me on the journey. One, to use my testimony, of course, but also to remind myself that I can do hard things, and also there's things that I think are going to be hard that actually are incredibly easy.
As hard. And God has prepared you for it. He knows the path. He knows what it's going to take to receive whatever blessing He has to give you, and He knows that you're right.
Yeah.
For it. I was on your social media and somebody made a dumb comment that you posted on your story.
Yeah.
And
I was like,
that's actually happens on the podcast all the time. As we talk, I think of other questions.
Yeah, no, I love it.
But how do you? So the person that made the comment was like, well, where does God come in? If you do IVF, where does God come in? And your response was just it was perfect. It was short and sweet and what are you talking about? God gives man. God is in charge of it all. None of us can't even come up with IVF without the inspiration of the Spirit of God that gives you the creative mind.
The person's comment was essentially like, wouldn't you like think to go like the more natural route first?
Don't you think
Exactly. So that I didn't even address that part of like,
do you think I tried?
Obviously that's how I got here. This is the pivot. But the pivot still has God in it. And I'll be honest, because early on in my IVF journey, I did struggle with feeling like, for lack of a better term, I was too involved.
Right.
I struggled with feeling like,
where's the miracle? How's the miracle happening?
Exactly. Even with like, we got to pick the gender, and we got to do this, and we got to decide what we want to freeze. And it felt like my hands were too in it.
Yeah.
But then I had to realize that like, we were led here by God. This is a God-led journey.
Yeah.
This God is in every, even though to us it seems like we pick the gender, like, no, God wants us to have a girl first. Like it still is him. If he is the person that's ordering my steps, then he's never out of anything that I'm doing.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
But I did
giving
struggle
you
with
the
that.
opportunity to everybody. Like I said, it's expensive to do that kind of stuff, and there's so many people who can't even afford to even have the option to do it. So God is also in that. Like, it's like, thank you for affording me to even have the opportunity to conceive, in this way, and it
such a blessing.
Yeah, it's just so interesting. People are so they're just like disconnected from like other people's experiences. Even with having like a C-section, people will be like, well, why did you have a C-section? Like, do you? I'm like, listen, there might be women in the world that choose to have a C-section.
I'm having a scheduled C-section
right?
too.
But for me, that was not my goal. Like with my first son, like I wanted to do it, natural. I didn't even want to do medicine. What
happened?
Well, I ended up, so at 32 weeks, and this is actually a really good point for a lot of women, especially Black women, who are having babies. And we know the healthcare system, Black women have a hard time being able to advocate for themselves.
Yes.
When we go to the doctor, especially when we're pregnant, and we go and we tell them, like, hey, something's off. Something feels wrong. They tell us we don't know what we're talking about. So at 32 weeks, I was using the bathroom. I peed. And then 15 minutes later, water was running down my leg when I was like eating my cereal. Like eating my Apple Jacks, right? And so I called the doctor because I'm like, I've been, at that point, I was 29 years old. Like, I've lived a pretty long life. I kind of know the difference between pee and water.
Yeah. Like, it was different.
Right. Like,
and you're not just peeing yourself randomly.
15 minutes later. Like, I do understand you can pee and sometimes it doesn't all come out. But that usually happens a little quicker than that. Yeah. So I called and I was like, hey, can I come in? So I went in. And so they checked my fluid or whatever. And they're like, well, your fluid is a little low, but, you're fine. Yeah, my amniotic fluid. So from 32 weeks on, I had to keep going to the doctor every week to check my fluid. Okay. My fluid was always low. I'm like, well, why is my fluid low? Clearly, it's leaking out. Like,
that's the only,
to me, that's like the only reason. So anyway, when I end up going into labor,
you went into labor naturally?
I went into labor naturally with Jackson. I remember I was at church.
Your water broke?
My water broke in the bathroom.
This is different water. This is not amniotic. This is a whole different. Or is that more of the?
It is. It's like your amniotic fluid and all that kind of stuff is in that water bag.
Gotcha. Okay.
So my water broke. When my water broke, it was like bloop bloop bloop, like drip drip drip. Like it wasn't like. Like a gush of water, like most women.
And how many weeks were you?
I was full term by this time.
Oh, okay.
So they said my due date would be the 18th. Well, I got two. When I went to Planned Parenthood, they said the 18th. When I went to Kaiser, they said when I went to Planned Parenthood, they said the 20th of March. When I went to Kaiser, they said the 18th of March. Okay. I didn't want to be pregnant any longer than I had to. Yeah. So I was like, ooh, the 18th. Like, the 2 days. I want to meet my baby. Like, and so I'm hoping for the 18th. Yeah. He didn't come, but on the 20th.
Wow.
On the 20th or the 19th, actually, we were at church. water broke in the bathroom. And I'm like, okay, I went to the classes. They're like, when your water breaks, you can go home, you can take a shower, you know, get your bag ready, take your time, go into the... So that's what I did. We left church, got home, took a shower. After I took that shower, that's when the contractions started going. I'm like, oh shit, this is crazy. But I still waited it out, you know. Girl, by the time I got to the hospital, I had a full-on fever of 100 and right before dying, like right before whatever your fever needs to get to for you to pass away. It was almost
Were you feeling feverish?
Well, at first I wasn't, but when I got to the hospital, I was freezing. Like my whole body was just like, you know, if you're just freezing. And I'm like, why am I freezing? I don't even know why I'm cold. Like, you know, so I go in, they're like, oh, you have a very high fever. You have an infection. So that's how I know my fluid was leaking out all that time. So once my water broke, that was just literally the end of... Once that mucus plug broke and then that water came out, that little water that came out was the end of it.
Wow.
So it was like emergency from the beginnings. They had to give me this medication. They had to put me on oxygen.
Oh, wow.
His heart rate was dropping.
Oh, no.
And it's not too scary because you got to
No,
go, you know,
no. I'm not scared at all. I appreciate the real story.
Yeah, but it was not what I expected. And I think that's the lesson with having children and going through any kind of process.
Yeah.
When you guys first started, we want to have a baby. You're like, we're gonna just do it the natural way. We did all this pre-research. Everything's I'm perfect. He's perfect. Why is this not? And for me, in my mind, I'm like, I had the best pregnancy ever. No morning sickness. Glowing. Didn't gain hurt. I gained like 20 pounds. I think maybe just was fly. I'm like, oh, this is a great experience. And then I get to the day of birthing and I'm like, oh, what's happening? You know? Yeah. And so I ended up having to get an epidural because my cervix wouldn't dilate fast enough, but I was still having contractions every minute. Oh my So the doctor was like, you're going to need an epidural. So I'm like, no, because this is not my plan. Like,
it's not your birth
I wanted
plan.
to have a natural birth like my mom. My mom had all of us with no medicine. And
of course she did.
Of course. Okay. And I was like, I want to be like that. You know? And it just, my mom told me, she was like, it's okay. She was like, this is not your story. It doesn't mean you failed because
as long as he gets here
you
safely.
had to go a different route.
Yeah.
And that's the same for getting pregnant.
Yes.
It's not a failure to have to go a different route to be able to get the blessing that is rightfully yours that God wants for you. Yeah. If it wasn't in the cards for y'all to have a baby, then the IVF wouldn't have worked either.
Exactly.
Right. So anyway, got the epidural. Things started moving. He was like 9.5 centimeters dilated. All of a sudden, the doctor bursts in the room, and she's like, "You need a C-section right now. Like your cervix is too narrow. He's stuck in your cervix. If he's in there any longer." He's not going to be able to pass through the birth canal. Your birth canal is too narrow. That's what she's saying. So, of course, I'm like, it's my first time being a mom. If this was like my second or third baby, I'd have been like, lady, I am 9.5 centimeters dilated. You need to figure out how to get me to 10. Yeah. Without cutting me open, But I was like, listen, he's having a hard time. Like, my baby is in there having a hard time. And he is going to be a little black boy in America, and he's going to have an even harder time navigating life. So let me do what I can do to get him here as easy as possible, to make things as easy as possible. Hopefully I don't die. Because that was the other thing. She had no bedside manner at all. She was just like, and you need to sign this so that we have no liability if you die.
Oh my gosh. What?
Girl, it was terrible. It was terrible. And so... had the C-section. He was in NICU for the first 4 days, I think, because he was jaundiced, and then I had an infection, so they had to make sure he didn't have it. So it was a very traumatic experience for me that I was not expecting, and it affected the first part of my mothering,
your early days,
postpartum, and just feeling like, what happened? Like this is not what I thought or intended. So no, did I want to have a C-section? No. Now with Roosevelt, I went to a different doctor, and he was like, if you already had a C-section, you got to get another C-section. So I was like, okay, because I still was like, well, I want to try to push a baby out.
Which they also say now isn't even true too. You can do a VBAC.
Well, yeah, it's just your doctor has to approve.
Be okay
and
with
he
it.
was like, I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, no, let's just. So we scheduled it. His due date was technically supposed to be on the 6th of December, but his dad's birthday is December 4th. Just like.
Wait, what?
Yes.
They have the same birthday?
They have the same birthday. So I said,
this is a special birthday for you.
Right.
Are you a Jay-Z fan?
I not like him, but
Okay.
no, not like, I mean, yeah, I like him. I like Jay, but not a huge, like, I'm not a crazy fan. But yeah, his dad's birthday is December 4th. So I was like, oh, his due date is the 6th, and they're saying we can schedule it.
Yeah.
Like, do you want a baby on your birthday? And he was like, actually, yeah, I do.
Oh my God.
So I was like, okay. So we scheduled it on December 4th. It was the most peaceful experience. Like, besides them numbing me up to my neck.
Well, yeah, not looking forward to that.
Right, but it was so peaceful.
wow.
It was a completely different experience than the first one.
Yeah.
You know? But, it's just, everything's not, you can't plan it. You just gotta let life
Let it happen.
let life do what it does.
So that's the stage that I'm in now. I've had such a blessed journey with like the IVF and all of that. But now I'm like, now it's birth.
Yeah.
Like this is the next thing that like I have not done before and I don't know, I have a plan, but like the plan could not go as planned.
Right.
And, just really wanting to make sure that I'm okay, that we are okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of where my head's at now.
Okay, so since we're talking about all these birthing stories and all this, tell me one thing that excites you about motherhood and one thing that scares you about motherhood.
Okay, the thing that excites me about motherhood is that I just get to experience somebody new that's gonna be lovely and like created out of love of with my husband and I.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for like the adventure of motherhood and honestly like the challenges and the rewards and all of the things that come along with it. I'm just really excited for that. And I think what I'm like I'll say like apprehensive about is just like what our challenges will be.
Yeah.
Because we will have them. You know what I mean? Like what the thing I'm curious to see the things that do not come to me easily, but that she still needs.
Right.
And the problem solving that it will take for me to be able to still help her and provide for her and support her as best I can, even though it's not maybe my natural way.
Right.
Or the way that she might prefer that I do it for her. And I feel like that's with all like child-parent relationships, and so I think that's what I feel like will be most challenging, but also I'm committed to like working through whatever that is, and I want us to have really healthy communication. I really, really want that. I want her to always feel like she can talk to me,
right?
And obviously know that I'll always be there for her.
Why did you guys choose to have a girl first? So cool that you guys got to choose the gender.
Honestly, we chose a girl first because we had more girl embryos.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had more. Our genetics split. We got 17 embryos, which is like we are so blessed. But typically, when you do IVF, they give like a package, like during it as a part of your package. They'll be like, we'll genetically test 8 if you have 8. Some people, if you only have 4, they'll test all 4. But because we had more than 8, they tested 8. And our genetics split, that's the cool thing. You find out like the quality of the egg, you can know the gender, you can know everything when you do IVF. But our genetic split out of the 8 was 4 girls and 4 boys, which I thought was kind of cool.
Right.
Because I have other friends who have tested 8 and they've had like 7 boys and 1 girl.
But I also didn't realize that the eggs have, because they always say the male
determines.
the
Oh, but these are embryos. They're testing embryos.
Oh, I see.
We created embryos. Yes. So we did the step beyond eggs. We created embryos.
Okay, yes. That makes perfect sense.
Yes. Okay. So we had 4 girls and 4 boys, but all 4 of the girls came back like genetically perfect, and only one of the boys came back like genetically great. So we figured we just have more, honestly, because you don't know if an embryo transfer is going to work on the first, we were like, this sounds, but we had more girls to go through. So we were like, well, we might as well do a girl. So we kind of like, that's how it was decided.
And then how many kids do you guys want?
Just 2.
Just 2.
And I mean, I don't have this one yet. So I could be like, you know what?
Maybe just 1.
Meanwhile, my husband's like, he's like, I just think we're going to have, and we're just going to want so many. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to be the case for me, but I'm wishing you the best. Right. My love. Like, I'm like, but yeah, just 2.
Yeah, I mean, motherhood, birthing children, period, for the woman is just it's just a huge undertaking. It's literally the closest to death that you will get to, besides actually dying.
And it's a chunk out of your life too.
And it's a chunk out of your life. It does affect, like it does. That's why I said, like, having 2 kids and people being like, oh, are you gonna have more? And I'm like, no. Like, first of all, I'm in my 40s. Yeah. So I'm 42. Very proud of it. But me pregnant right now at 42 is not the move for me.
I get it.
Not the move for me. And it does. It's a huge undertaking, and it does, even if you're active and you're still, I mean, as an actor, you know, you're still auditioning, you're still doing things while you're pregnant.
But it's different.
It's different. And
it's different.
when you have that baby is you are its soul. God bless the fathers, but they're looking to you as a mom for their survival, for their food, for everything. So it is a huge it's a huge commitment. You know, I know after we had Jackson, he was about 2.5, maybe 3, and my ex-husband at the time, when we were married, he was like, you know, what do you think? You want to have another baby? And I was like, you know what, Jackson is enough for me. I was like, I think I'm good. Like, you know, I was like, I feel good. Like, I'm back.
You hit a groove.
Yeah, I hit a groove. Like, I'm finally feeling like I'm kind of getting in the mode of the motherhood thing.
Yeah.
And career-wise, I was like doing plays and like, so I was like, I think I'm good for now, you know. But he really wanted, you know, he wanted another one, and I say I neither of my kids were planned. Like they just, I'm like, they came when they were supposed to, you know. So when I got pregnant with Roosevelt, it was unexpected, and I was just like, oh my God, like, oh shit, I'm about to have another baby. Yeah. You know? And then there's the fears of, I think one of my, I'm not sure if I had a lot of apprehensions, like having my first child, and it might be because it was just like it happened out of the blue. And I was excited. I was really excited, and I just wasn't thinking about the fears of it, I guess. But with Roosevelt, I was worried about not having enough in me to love 2 children. Yeah, I felt like I had given so much love and all that I had to Jackson, and I was just like, oh my God, like, do I have enough love to give to this other child? And the beautiful thing about motherhood is, yes, you do. Like, as soon as he was growing inside of me, I was like, oh, well, that question was answered, you know. But there is just like, am I gonna be a good parent? Am I going to raise someone who is older and is not looking at me saying, why did you damaged me in these ways, or why did you not do this or that? Like those pressures, you know. And there's no handbook for parenthood.
You gotta do your best.
You gotta do your best, just
as with all things, right?
Yeah,
like you just gotta do your best.
Exactly. So what do you think this season of your life is teaching you the most about yourself?
I think this season of my life is teaching me how much capacity I have. Capacity for a multitude of things. For love, for patience, for grace, my capacity for being able to surrender. Like, I think surrender is such a big thing for me, and I just feel like this has been a season where, like, I've had no other choice but to surrender. There's nothing about this season of my life has gone as planned. Honestly, the embryo transfer was the thing that has gone the most according to plan.
Right.
But everything else surrounding it has not. Like, literally, just everything has been completely flipped on its head. And So I think that it's, the season has been showing me my capacity to endure and also to remember who my source is.
Yeah.
Like when I think about how much I've been through in this past year, my husband had a kidney transplant in January.
Yes.
You know, I was early days pregnant. And so we've had a lot of big, major life moments happening in the past 6 months, really, when we have the biggest life transition for us both coming in 2 months. But I look back and I'm like, but we've made it through. Like I kept every month. This year has been a year where every month I'm like, how are we gonna make it to the next month?
Right.
How are we gonna get to the next month? What's gonna happen?
What
month?
What am I gonna face in this next month?
What is it gonna be in this month? And now I'm like, we're over halfway through the year. Right. We made it through. We're okay.
It's like you said in the beginning. I can do the hard things, and I actually have another good friend of mine. That's like her mantra. Like we were built to do the hard things.
Yeah.
You know? And you never know what your capacity is until you're presented with the opportunity. Yep. You know, you're presented with these opportunities, and they are opportunities. And I think that's the best. Yeah. That's the best way to see it. It's like, this is challenging, you know. Yes. But it is an opportunity to perfect my faith. You know, to grow me in an area.
And everything, I also know enough to know that everything works for our good.
Yeah.
So, although this season has been incredibly challenging and tested my capacity, I know that it's setting me, it's a setup for something. Right. And I think what I always try to remind myself and remind others of is that, like, you have to stay the course so you can find out what it is.
Right.
If I give up and I say I don't want to do this, I don't want to do the hard things, I don't want to have more capacity. If I start to become like stubborn about it, then I'm gonna miss out on the thing. Right. And the cool thing about my life right now is I don't really know what that thing is. Right. I know one of them is my baby.
Of course, right.
But I know there's so much.
Other things,
there's so many other things. So. I'm just enduring, and I'm really proud of that, actually.
Yeah, you should be. That's what life is about. I think the older you get, the more you go through, you realize like these are the things that matter. And the beautiful thing is when your kid, like Jackson said earlier, like how did you come up with my name? Or him sitting here listening to his birthing story.
Yeah.
When your daughter gets older and she gets to listen to her birthing story, she's gonna be like, my parents literally went to no end to bring me into this world. Yeah. They literally did everything they possibly could to bring me here. Yeah. Like how special.
It's so cool you say that, because I was actually thinking about how kind of surreal it was that you were talking about this like really traumatic birth experience with your beautiful son being here. I was thinking about like just how that must have been playing in because I know how it was playing in my mind, but like you literally seeing like he's
evidence
here
of what you went through.
And he's beautiful and he's healthy and he's friendly and smart and just a wonderful child. Yes. But like it just goes to show like it started out really traumatic. Yes. And you had a tough time in the early days. Yes. But like you guys made it this far together. Yes. And I just thought that was really like, it kind of gave me chills. Like, wow, he's here. She's talking about this birth story and he's just here, chilling.
Well, I don't remember where the scripture is, but the Bible talks about the stuff that you're going through. There's something in the glory that's ahead of you. You have to put your mind on that. Like you have to focus on that glory that is to come while you're enduring, what it is. So what advice or or encouragement would you give to women who are having trouble conceiving or ones that are starting the IVF process? I know that just because you do IVF doesn't mean you will conceive. Like, what encouragement can you give to those that are on the journey?
The encouragement I would give is, you kind of spoke to it earlier, advocate for yourself. And really set yourself up to feel a sense of freedom in your journey. Yeah. So again, I think what I want to encourage women to do is like assess where you are. If you are someone who is maybe single but thinks that you might maybe want to have kids, I would suggest looking into freezing your eggs.
Right.
If you are someone who has been maybe dealing with infertility, especially if it's unexplained infertility, don't be afraid to pivot. I think sometimes we don't want to know the answers. We don't. It's scary, right? But I think pivoting was the best thing that could have happened to us because, you know, let's go back to that comment you said that girl made to me online.
Right.
Had I done what she's basically saying I should have done, which is like, why don't you just keep trying the natural way? The natural way wasn't my way.
It wasn't your way.
So I would have been trying for so many years when there's so many amazing options available to us. And I'm proud of myself for seeking them out. And I'm grateful that I have a good OBGYN who pushed us in that direction. Like that's what life is about. So
that's what miracles
are about. So I just would encourage you to really sit down and figure out what it is that you want and start figuring out if your insurance can cover any of it, if you can save for it, if you can maybe call on family and friends to support you in getting money to support you in that journey. It's a beautiful journey and it's not, you don't want to look back and say, I could have done X, Y, and Z and I just didn't. There's just too many options available to us. So be encouraged and also like seek inspiration. There's so many of us that are doing it, that have done it, that are willing to share our stories, willing to share our resources.
Like seek a community that can support you and encourage you and just hold you up.
The IVF and the mom community, I'm obsessed. I'm like, I wish I had gotten here earlier. You guys are the best. I love all of you.
Well, and I just, like I always say, being a mom is the best role I'll ever play in my life. And it has changed me and changed my life in so many ways. And I think the more mothers encourage one another and tell real stories about what it's really like.
Yes.
You know, and it helps us move out of these having these high expectations for ourselves. Yeah. When we do get into times where we don't know what to do, you know, or where we're just not feeling it. Like we're overwhelmed. Yeah. Like whatever it might be. Like nobody's story is the same, you know? So the more that we like hold space for one another, I think the more we normalize motherhood and, you know, what it means to be a woman.
Like I'm sitting here so grateful that you shared your stories with me. Like you all didn't hear this, but we're delivering at the same hospital. We wouldn't have known that. You know what I mean? Like it's just, it's really cool. Like, so yeah, I'm grateful for everything you shared with me too, especially in this like last chunk as I prepare for birth and labor.
Well, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you, sis.
It's so crazy. I was going to ask you to be on the podcast before I saw that you had conceived. I just knew you were going through the IVF process. And the same day I sent you a message, I was like, oh my God.
See, it's meant to be.
It's so cool. So I'm like, just having the success story, like, hey, I went through the process and, you know, it worked out. It's just, it's inspiring and it's really a wonderful thing to share. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, sis. I'm so proud of you. This is amazing.
Thank you.